Hey, Andrew Masters here. Welcome to another episode of Studio Time. Today we're going to be taking a look at a mix setup for a rock song. I was hired to mix it, and I was also hired to record and perform drums on it. So I'm going to show you how I go about putting the session together for the mix, with the caveat that I've already created the session and recorded the drums to it, but we'll now be adding all of the stems. So we'll go through the stems that we got and exactly how we're going to set up the session. So do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe if you like this kind of content, and let's get into it. All right, so let's pull up our session in Pro Tools here. Basically, when I started this, I had a 2-track that I was recording drums to. It was the version of the song without drums, and then I performed the drums to it. So I imported our track that I was playing to into the session, and then I pulled in basically my drum template that I record on. So you can see that we've got our master fader here, our click. These are all drum tracks. I've got a available kick and snare sample aux track that I will sometimes use if we want to put some samples in there. This is our drum bus, so all of the drum tracks are being submixed into this drum bus fader, which just basically has 2 hardware inserts on it. But this is essentially my drum template. So if we just take a listen here. So I recorded these drums to the track, sent it to the artist, they approved it. Now they have gone ahead and sent me the stems. So the track is called Falling Out. These are the stems here. So we've got bass, guitar, and vocals. The guitars and the bass on his session are using virtual amps. So I had him go ahead and give me the direct signal of the guitars and the bass, but also print stems with the tone that he used in his session, because the guitar sounded good. But what I want is I want that amp sim without any processing, compression, or EQing done like he had in it. I want the full tone from the virtual amp. So we have stems here of vocals, bass, you can see DI, and then tone, same thing, guitar, DIs, and then we have the tone. We've got the raw vocals, and then there's even an effects track with the effects that he used on his vocals, which sounded really appropriate for this song. So I'm going to go ahead and import these into our session here. So I'm going to go to the top of the song, and we're going to pull these in above the drum track. So I'm going to do Shift-Command-I, and we'll start with bass, and I'm going to kind of go one at a time here and build the song without pulling everything in all at once. Okay, it's possible that I'm gonna have to line these up. Let's check and see. I'm gonna mute the DI. So we're gonna pull these down a little bit. So that's good. Bass sounds good. These are stereo tracks. I don't need stereo for these, so we're gonna make them mono tracks. Make sure those are panned center. And it sounds just a tiny little bit ahead, but I'm gonna leave that for now until I get the other tracks. So if I need to nudge any timing stuff, I can nudge them all together. Let's make these tracks their own color here. So I'm gonna repeat this process and go through and import each one of the elements of this song and make sure that their timing is lined up with the rest of the session. Okay, so I have all of the stems imported into the session. Let me just show you what we've got here. We've got our Lead vocal, the lead vocal effects, I asked the singer to print off the micro pitch shift effect they were using. Then we have some background vocals here. It looks like the background vocals are doubled. So we have background BGVs 1, 2, and 3, and a left and right of both. Then we have some guitar tracks and some bass tracks. Now all the stems that were sent to me were stereo stems. So I went through and I made all of them mono, except for the lead vocal effect, since it is a stereo effect. But all the other tracks I don't want to be stereo, because then you have, it's a mono source that's on a stereo track, and then you just have these two pans, and it's just a little bit frustrating. So we've got them, everything is organized kind of how I like to see it here. I've gone through and I've done a little bit of a balance on just the instruments so far, and just listened for some timing stuff and put things in place. It's feeling pretty good. Here's a little peek at how things are sounding right now. One of the other things I did outside of just organizing the stems and the tracks is actually grouping things together, so I can just grab all of the electric guitars that are in relative levels that I want them to. For instance, the rhythm guitars here. I can grab those together because they're doubled. And if I want to pull them up or down, I can just grab one of the faders and they're all grouped. The lead, or this extra guitar layer here, is not in that group because they're doing different things. For example, on verse 2 here. So we've organized the tracks. I've done some visual organization with the labeling and the colors, personal, subjective kind of stuff. We've got our bass here, which I have not relabeled. Bass DI, bass amp tone. Next, what I'm going to do is essentially do what I did with my drum template. Now on the drums, I have a template that I kind of use when I start, which includes audio tracks and buses or auxes that are using buses. For example, all of the drum audio tracks go to a stereo track right here, which you can see labeled drum kit, which is like my stereo drum bus. So all of the drum audio tracks go to that drum bus. But I also submix sources that have multiple mics. So for example, the kick drum has 2 microphones on it. And both of those audio tracks are routed to a mono aux, which is the kick drum. So we've got our kick in and kick out. And then the output of the mono aux, or subgroup of the kick drum, goes to the drum bus. So we have some submixing going on, and I'm going to repeat this process with the other instruments like the guitars. We'll probably do a guitar bus, like a stereo guitar bus that has all of the electric guitars going to it, and maybe even a bass. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't do with bass. This instance, I haven't decided on if we're doing DI, if I'll use the tone or not, or what that'll be, but sometimes I'll use a bus for the bass as well. And then of course for vocals, I will have a series of auxes that we use for the vocal tracks. The lead vocal is on its own aux track, and then the backgrounds are on their own aux tracks. I like to keep the lead vocal on a mono path because I'm using hardware inserts, and for vocals I will be running it through a compressor that is just one channel, so I can't insert a single channel compressor piece of hardware on a stereo aux or audio track. So we'll be keeping the lead vocal in a mono path. But that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and start creating these auxes for the different sources, and then we will probably move on to doing more in-depth mixing, EQ moves, automation, stuff like that. But I'll show you where I land with the auxes once I get them in. All right, so it's been a few days. I've gone through and completed the mix, so I wanted to just give you an overview of what's changed since I started making those buses and what I wound up using. Let's go ahead and take a listen here. A fun note here is I actually wound up pulling in the guitar direct channels and reamping the direct line from the guitars through these beautiful amps behind me. I used a couple cabinets that I have in the other room and spent a lot of time playing around with mic placement and sounds, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm very happy with how that turned out. Let's take a look at how this session turned out. So as far as tracks go on the drums, pretty much everything stayed the same. I did wind up adding in kick and snare samples from my Studio Kit drum sample pack. So again, what's going on here is we have our audio tracks, our blue tracks here. Our aux tracks that we're using for busing are the gray or black tracks. So we've summed our kicks, our snares, and then the kick, snare, and the rest of the drum audio go to the drum kit. We have some parallel drum compression here, which I'm actually using Transient Designer plugin on. And then we have our kick and snare sample tracks. And then we have two auxes at the end here, which are our room tracks. Just for fun, I'm going to hit play and mute some of the stuff so we can hear it without it and with it. We'll start with just drums. So that's just drum audio as is. We add in our parallel tracks. Add in our samples. If you noticed, a wonderful supplementary effect to the kick and snare sound, but it's not really changing the sound of the drums. Again, here's without the samples. And then with the samples. But where the difference is really in the mix with all of the instruments in. Now let's add in the reverbs that we're using here. And I'm gonna mute all that stuff again, so this is just raw drum audio. And then parallel samples and reverb. Really tasteful stuff, not a huge difference, but enough of a difference when everything else comes in. For the bass, wound up, I did use a bass aux track because I played around with using multiple, like the direct sound and an amp emulation. But ultimately, I wound up just using the Ampeg SVT Suite plugin, which is just a cab emulation. So here's it without the plugin. And then here's with the plugin. And then when you add it with the drums, works really nicely with the kick drum, and they're not stepping on each other's toes, which is very nice. Now for the guitars, as I said, I wound up reamping things, and I'll explain the reamp routing here in a sec. But essentially, we still have our 2 rhythm tracks here. Now these are the reamped versions of the guitars. So these, as you can see down in the comment section of the track, it shows which amps I was using, the microphones, and the cabinet that I use, because I want to know, let's say, when we go to do another mix, what I used on it. Now the goal here is to get these guitars to sound as different from one another as possible. So we have those doubled guitars, which are totally different amps and pedals and everything, and then this third guitar. And then that, as well as the rhythm guitars, all get bussed to the electric guitar aux. So this aux right here is all of the electric guitars together. And as you can see, there is an amp room aux on here as well. And then the last guitar track that's on here is on the solo. So if we jump to that section here. The solo is really hitting the amp room hard. But as you can see, all these electric guitar tracks wind up hitting this electric guitar aux, all being bussed to the same fader. So at the end of the day, if I need to pull all the guitars down as a whole, just a dB or 2, I could just grab this one fader to do that for that mix between all of the guitars. Next, we have vocals. Now the vocals were really fun. So we have these background vocals here. These are all being bussed to a background vocals aux. So again, I can do some EQing, I can do some compression, and I even have a limiter on there. This is sometimes throwing a limiter on a bus is just what the doctor ordered. So we've got EQs across each background vocal layer, just essentially high pass filtering, and then the bus, same thing. I think I added a little mid-range and a little bit of high frequency shelving. This was like a, decisions like that I only make in the context of the entire song. So if we jump to the chorus. But the main focus of the song, of course, is the lead vocal. So this is our one lead vocal track, no doubles or anything. Our lead vocal track has a high-pass filter on it and a de-esser, and that is being routed to our lead vocal aux track, which is where I add on my dynamic processing. So I have two of these 1176 plugins in serial, and then I'm also inserting a hardware compressor after that, because the vocals are very dynamic on this song. So we've got this like singing, and then we have this screaming part. So what we did on the vocals, after the bus that has the compression on it, is we add in our candy here, which is our effects. And there are basically 3 effects. We've got our tape delay here on the vocal. So if we go, let's solo this vocal here. Now, if you see, I will automate that tape delay throughout the entire song. So you're going to see that So as the song plays, you see that vocal tape fader going up and down, as well as the mute coming off and on, because that's really a very important part of making the vocal interesting and easier to hear as the song goes through. It's very uninteresting to have an effect be continuous throughout the entire duration of the song. You want things to be surprising and kind of pop in and out as the song goes through. And it's not always needed, so, you know, automating your effects on your vocals is huge. The other 2 effects that are on here are essentially like chorus or micro pitch shift delays, and then a small room from the RMX 16, which I have the 500 series version here. So this is actually audio printed on these vocals. So I'm gonna mute the, well, I guess I can't. Let's see, I'll turn this off. Mute the tape delay. So this is vocal dry. Now I'm gonna add on the RMX 16 room. I think it's called Room A. This is a great rock vocal effect. Now we're gonna add on the RMX 16 chorus. And then the micro pitch shift. I'm gonna flip this back to read so we can hear all the vocal effects together. Now let's hear it in the context of the track. Okay, so now after the vocals, we have our lead vocal, our background vocal, then everything just hits our master fader over here on the left, which has our master fader chain. Some of these are plugins, high pass filter, tape saturation, hardware insert. This is a plugin version of the Airband. This is like an imaging thing that I'm just barely touching. And our FabFilter Pro L limiter, which is just squashing the living hell out of it. And that's what we've got. Everything comes down to this fader here, which has the hardware on it, but a lot of these individual audio tracks or auxes also have hardware compressors or hardware EQs, as well as hardware effects, which in this case I've actually recorded in as audio to keep printed. And that's it. That's for the rock thing. That's it. Drums, guitars, bass, vocals. I didn't even put a tambourine on here. I was thinking about putting a tambourine on here, but yeah, it turned out really great. by the way. This is something I just noticed. This is a good setting on here. Let's see if I can find it. General color, default track color, clip color to track color. Okay, here we go. Boom. Oh, how much better is that? Okay. I'm sure that just made somebody else happy too. Let me know what you think. By the way, the name of this band is called Counterspell. They're based out of Texas. And this was really, really fun to work with. Ian, who is the songwriter and singer and guitar player on this, has a lot of talent and really nailed this style of rock, which is near and dear to my heart. It was an honor to get to play drums on this. The band's called Counterspell. Whenever it comes out, I'll put a link down below. It's not out yet. I just wanted to make this video as I mixed this. Also, if you have any questions about the reamping, I didn't get to the reamping. It might just make more sense to make that its own video. So let me know if you would want to see a video on the reamping process. But since we were going ahead with this mix, my intern here had some questions, and I thought it would be really fun to share some of the questions he had in the process of going through this with you. If you are new to recording and mixing, hopefully this added some value for you. If it did, hit that subscribe button. I've got links to all the gear that I'm using on this mix and in my studio down below if you have any questions about that kind of stuff. You can also book consultations with me, hire me to do remote drum recording and things like that. Also, I'm going to link a drum recording seminar that we are doing next month that you can register for now. Go check that out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.